Okay, this lesson is about the U.S. presidents, the 1 through 19 that we have discussed and you have written in class. So we're going to discuss the United States president from number 1 to 19. All right, we'll talk about the first 7 on this slide. Number 1, of course, everyone knows. One of Coach Sullivan's favorite is George Washington. All right, and then we're going to be learning about the years they served as president as well as the party. One thing you represent that you see is he will be the first president, starts in 1789 till 1797. Okay, again, if they serve 2 terms, which is 8 years, like we discussed in class, or 1 term, which is 4 years, and then we'll explain some other examples. But George Washington is president from 1789. That is a key date to know. That is when it started, the president. That's year 1. All right, and then of course, like we mentioned before in class, George Washington had no party. Okay, the second president is John Adams, and he is president from 1797 to 1801. Now, another thing I want you to notice is you will see that most of these are odd numbers because the election takes place during a even year, like 2016 or 2020 in this case, but the president doesn't really take over until the following year. So John Adams is going to serve 1 term. And he is a Federalist, the only Federalist president of the United States. Then number 3 is Thomas Jefferson. He is president from 1801 to 1809, and he is referred to as a Republican. Now remember, these are the ones in class, these 3 through 6. Technically they were called Democrat/Republican, and then later they wanted to shorten their name to Republican. So we're going to go by that, what your textbook says. So the Thomas Jefferson, 1801 to 1809, and he is a Republican. Followed by James Madison, number 4, 1809 to 1817, Republican. James Monroe, 1817 to 1825, he's also a Republican. John Quincy Adams, which is the son of John Adams, he is 1825 to 1829, and he is a Republican. And then number 7 is Andrew Jackson, and he is president from 1829 to 1837, and he is the country's first Democrat president. Okay, and that's Andrew Jackson. Now, of these first 7, a couple things that makes it easy to realize is if you look at them, they all are going to serve 2 terms, with the exception of if their last name are Adams. The Adams, father son, only serve 1 term for 4 years. Okay, so that's important to know. All right, now moving on to number 8 through 15 on this slide. Number 8 is Martin Van Buren. He is president from 1837 to 1841. He is also a Democrat. Number 9 is William Henry Henderson, and we talked about him. Now, if you notice on his date, there's only 1 year. Now, remember in class we discussed how he is only president for 30 days. He dies in office. So some unique things to know about him is he's number 9, 1841, okay, old war general, and then he is the first of what is the Whig Party, okay, he's the first of the Whig. All right, once he died after 30 days, John Tyler takes over, and he will finish out that term. That's 1841 to 1845, and he is remembered as a Whig as well. All right, number 11 is James K. Polk. You remember he's the one we talked about that grew the country with purchasing California and negotiating Oregon and winning some Texas and the land from Mexico. So he's very important to realize because he's 1845 to 1849, and he is a Democrat. And he will be followed up by a Whig, Zachary Taylor, who was one of the heroes from the Mexican War, from 1849 to 1850. Now, here's something that should catch your eye right away. You see something that says 1850, immediately tells you, say, hey, look, Coach told me odd numbers. this is an even. Something happened. Yes, remember we discussed in class, Zachary Taylor dies after a year and a half into his presidency. And so that is why you see 1850 there. And that's also Millard Fillmore is number 13. And he takes over from 1850 to 1853, who's also a Whig. Then you have number 14, Franklin Pierce, 1853 to 1857, and he is a Democrat. Follow it up by number 15, James Buchanan. He is president from 1857 to 1861. All right, now the last slide covers these last four. Like I said, we're only going to 19. And then the number 16, one that everyone likes, everyone knows, Abraham Lincoln. Okay, remember covering him in our class activity when we role play the election of 1860. So, of course, he takes over in 1861, and he is president to 1865. He's covered by the time in which the Civil War takes place, and we'll get to that in a later chapter. But he is what we know also as the first Republican to win the White House. We remember talk about Fremont and some of them that are a run, but Lincoln is the first Republican president, number 16. After he is assassinated, he takes Andrew Johnson, number 17, takes over for Lincoln, and he finishes out Lincoln's second term. Now, that's one thing I do want to make sure you understand, because Lincoln is going to win the election of 1864. And the way it falls, it looks like he's just served one term. But he had won the process, and he was on the very beginning of his second term, and that is what Andrew Johnson will take over. He is 1865, Andrew Johnson to 69, and he's also a Republican. Number 18 is a hero. One of the heroes of the Civil War, Grant, will become president. Now, something unique about him is he is president from 1869 to 1877. He is the only one since Andrew Jackson from our 1s to 19 that will serve 2 terms. All the rest of them either died in office, or they were only a 1-term president. And Grant is a Republican. Then he's followed up by 19, Mr. Hayes, who's going to move us through the part of Reconstruction, rebuilding the South after the Civil War, and that's from 1877 to 1881. He is also a Republican. All right, some pretty cool facts that you need to know for your little quiz when it comes to the presidents. Again, the first 19. One president had no party, of course, Washington. One president was a Federalist. Remember, we had 4 Whigs. Okay, that's not on the PowerPoint, but we had 4 Whigs. We had the total of 5 Democrat presidents of 1 through 19, and 8 Republicans. When also, if you look at the first 19, you can also find out that there are 3 presidents who are going to die in office, and that is William Harrison, Zachary Taylor, and Abraham Lincoln. All 3 of those are going to die in office.